I'm a nerd.
Nerds.
Nerds.
I'm not kissing a nerd.
What is a nerd?
We interrupt this program for an important message from Nerdables.
Welcome, Deadables, to episode 11, I think.
Sure.
This week, we're talking about the... I guess it is. It's been such a long weekend with WonderCon. This weekend, we're talking about the episode East.
Mm-hmm. Not West,
Not West.
but East.
Don't get it confused with Kanye's kid. It's East.
North?
No. Is
South?
it North? I don't know. Fuck,
Northeast?
one of those directions.
12 clicks west?
South by Southeast.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I think we should first give a shout out to our super fan, Eric, who posted us a comment on iTunes this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a.
What'd he say?
Let me go back to it.
He's like, you guys suck, and I'm not listening to this podcast ever again. Just wanted to let you guys know.
No.
So now we're down to no fans.
Let's see, where was it? Because it specifically mentioned the Walking Dead cast, not the Talking Dead, the Dead
That
cast.
popular show that people actually watch.
Yeah, it mentioned this one.
Mm.
Let's see, where is it? It's from the Mystical White Chocolate. Ooh. That's what we should make as our T-shirts.
Mystical white chocolate.
Well, Chris and I were talking about it. We should do the I'm the Real White Chocolate, or now with the Mystical White Chocolate. It says, show is great, sometimes chaotic in its pacing and discussions, but that makes it feel like an actual discussion. The Deadcast that they do is great in giving It's great, and it gives a pretty good comparison from the comic to the show, which someone that doesn't read the comic, which for someone that doesn't read the comic,
We swear you're not drunk.
not right now. But I do need my glasses. I don't have my reading glasses. I'm getting old. Which for someone that doesn't read the comic, a nice idea of what is coming and what is trying to be conveyed. The comic to the show, which for someone
So to break
that
it down
doesn't
for
read
people-
the comic, a nice idea.
So to break it down for people who can't understand Richnese,
Richanese.
it's basically saying that he enjoys the fact that we break down things that happen in the episode and also
We compare
it
it
to the comic book and give
Vice
people
versa.
an insight of what to expect, and things like that. So that's cool.
So on that, as we're getting ready to get to the season finale and the introduction of Negan, we had a little bit of a...
Well, first off, let's just say, as
Spoilers?
always, this episode is going to have a ton of spoilers. If you haven't watched the episode yet, hold off on listening to this podcast until you watch the episode, and then come back and visit us, and we'll
Visit
be
us?
glad. Visit us, yes, with your listening device.
And leave us a comment on it, and then that way we can know what the hell you think.
Be as cool as Eric and leave us a comment.
No, as the Mystical White Chocolate.
That's
Get it right.
Sorry. Be as cool as the Mystical White Chocolate and leave us a comment.
That's right.
You guys can make up your own screen name too and see if you can outbeat his, because as of right now, it's the Mystical White Chocolate.
The Mystical White Chocolate, which I swear I'm going to make a T-shirt out of.
Sure.
So, anyways, this week we kind of diverged from the comic book quite a bit. It was a filler episode.
Yeah, it was a filler episode, but it's also a setup for what happened next in the comic.
Yeah, I mean they've changed it a little bit from the way the group is. The group needs to be out because it's in the comic book. The group is out for another run for Hilltop.
I don't remember if it's because they're out for a run or if they feel like they have to go handle more of the saviors or
But
something.
I think it was that they went to Hilltop the first time in the comic book
Mhm.
and said, "Okay, we're gonna like they did in the show," and then they said, "We're gonna go out and we'll take care of the saviors," and then that was the deal, and then they came back for the supplies, and then I think that's when they were jumped in the.
It's been so long since I've read this part in the comics that it's always a blur to me. That's why when you were talking about the van with Carl and everything, and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that was
Right, that happens later, yeah.
because of what Carl and
That's after
it's
the-
like Carl and Negan getting introduced to each
Yeah,
other.
that's after
Yeah.
the saviors come to the gate.
Yeah. I think my memory's shot on this, but I think it was more along the lines of either they were going to stop the problem before it reached Alexandria, as in they wanted to go and take care of the saviors, or they were on a run and they get stopped.
Right. Which it should be if you're reading the comic book, it should be about volume 16, I believe. No,
More
it's
than that.
Later
actually.
than that.
I think it was volume.
Was 18
17.
17 or 18 when Carl lost his eye?
That was like 15. That was, I think,
I was thinking it was 14.
14 or 15. Yeah,
You know,
But-
you are on a wireless mic. You could
Mm-hmm.
walk over and grab it off the shelf.
probably. I guess. No, I think I think the introduction for Negan is 18.
Well, I thought
Because
because
it's
19 is All Out War,
It's
isn't
called
it?
Something to Fear. Is the name of. Let's see.
For those of you who don't realize it, Ethan is walking around my condo trying to get to the Walking Dead mode. And we lost his mic. And did it shut off? I believe it did. See if you can grab another mic. Those batteries may have not been charged for a couple weeks. And while we're having this little bit of a technical difficulty, we'll be telling you that the regular Nerdables podcast this week will be Batman vs. Superman, and next week we'll come back with the WonderCon edition. So, Ethan, are you anywhere near? No, your batteries need to be changed. Stupid fucking batteries. So yeah, this week of The Walking Dead, we did diverge from the comic book to a degree. I mean, we still had the overall feel of where we were in the book. The crew or the writers do a good job of diverging from the book, but at least staying with the tone of the book.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, we got Ethan back.
Woo!
Wow.
Back.
I don't know if everybody'd like me to do a podcast by myself. That might get really boring.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's any more entertaining than you looking through pages right now of the comic book. Okay, so the episode
there's-
opens up where we pick up from last week, where Carol has left the village.
That's so brutal.
Excuse me.
God, it's so brutal.
So Carol leaves. Daryl goes out because well, we originally thought Daryl was going out to look for Carol, but apparently he's going out to look for Dwight and everybody that killed Denise. So he and Carol are gone two separate ways, where we have Rosita, Glenn, Michonne, and did somebody else go with them?
It was Rosita,
Glenn,
Glenn,
and Michonne.
Michonne, and Daryl.
No, well, they went after Daryl. Michonne, Rosita, and Glenn went after Daryl,
Yeah.
and then
And then they
Rick,
broke off.
yeah, then Carol's bed buddy came and brought the note to Rick,
Yeah.
and Rick and Morgan went off after her, and they went east because Morgan said he knows where she's going.
Yeah.
So we have the groups going two different ways, basically east and west. Daryl's going after the Saviors, and Rick is going after Carol. I think Carol and we cut to Carol, and man, she just that
Badass?
yeah. I'm beginning to think that every time she does that anxiety thing where she's starting to hyperventilate, that's the sign of her switching gears into
Here's the
killer.
thing,
Like it's like a Terminator almost.
I see that as two different things. One, it could be the fact that she
Doesn't want
truly is not wanting to do it and knows what she's capable of,
right.
and says, "I'm gonna kill all these guys," and I really don't want to do it, and so it like gets her anxious. And,
Because she gets stopped by a truck of what, 5 guys? I think there's 2 in the cab, 3 in the
yeah,
bed.
5 of them all together.
Yeah.
And so I think it's either that or 2, it's her ploy to kind of throw these guys off.
Right.
Like, whereas she's already accepted the fact of who she is, but she tries to use it as, I'm a weak
it's a
and
sleight of
fragile
hand.
woman, and I can't defend myself, so don't hurt me type
Uh-huh.
thing. And it's just to throw these guys off, so to the point where she can do it. I think it's the former, where it's really something that she does not want to do, and it really makes her anxious.
See, that
she knows
gives
she
her
takes
some
care of it.
redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
Whereas if she does it just for the simple fact of the sleight of hand, look at this while I'm aiming my gun at you.
Hmm.
If she does it that way, it's more cold and calculated. And it could be a combination of the two.
Yeah.
She knows that she has this tick, if you will, but she's able to use it as a distraction, even though she really doesn't want to kill him.
All right. So the reason why in the comic book that the whole group is out on the road when they first meet Negan is that Glenn and Maggie with Sophia have decided that they were going to move to the hilltop.
Oh.
And so Rick and the group were taking Glenn, Maggie, and Sophia to the hilltop to be there because Maggie was pregnant and they had a doctor there. And so they said that it would be better if they lived there.
That falls right into what we saw with Maggie tonight.
Yeah. So it could, that could be the case, especially with what happened with Maggie. They're like, oh,
Because
yeah,
that's the only
go on.
doctor now.
Yeah.
The only
So-
doctor left is at Hilltop because Denise, the pseudo doctor, got killed last week.
Yeah. So that was the reason why in the comic book that the entire group packed up in the van and it got to nightfall. Oh, I just saw the part with
Negan's introduction.
well, no, not that, with Abraham.
Oh,
But okay. With what happened to Denise last week. Sidetracked, but okay. never mind.
so we could end up having Abraham next week too.
Yeah, Abraham was back at Alexandria with Rick.
It could be that Dwight's group comes back to Alexandria,
Yeah,
and you have both those things happening at once.
yeah, it was very possible.
And what
I
we're
mean,
talking about, we're not trying to talk in code here, or even shorthand because of us both knowing the comic book and where the show's going, but we kind of want to leave it a little bit vague so that way it's new to the audience for
Right.
you guys.
Also, I think we're trying to cover more stuff before we get to discussion points that we're trying to get
Sure.
for later in the episode. So we're trying to really wait until those quote unquote reveals on our show until we actually get to that point in the episode to talk about it.
Yes.
But
So right now we have Carol in a, for lack of a better term, Mexican standoff with
no Mexicans.
5 guys in a truck.
Well, I don't know. One of the guys looked like he could be.
Yeah,
Could
the
be
guy that was doing all the
Hispanic.
talking.
Yeah, he looked like he could be Hispanic.
So Carol's like begging him not to force her hand, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
they cut to the truck, and it looks like somebody's mowing him down with an M60 machine gun.
Yeah. Which and then the next shot is of Carol's sleeve
Yeah.
all ripped up, which
With
is,
smoke coming out of
Yeah,
it.
so she like hid some kind of machine gun in her sleeve, which I don't know.
It didn't
How-
look like there was. I mean, it didn't look like there was enough room for like an Uzi,
Yeah.
unless it was an
it's
automatic pistol.
It's a big jacket, but I don't think of it.
You couldn't put like an AK-47 or anything.
Yeah.
It had to be like a small handgun, like
It
an
was probably
automatic
like an Uzi
handgun.
or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
like a small, something small. But either way, she mows down most of these guys.
Yeah.
as we find out later. She gets like four out of 5 of the guys.
no, 3, because the 2 guys in the cab which I'm glad because when I saw all 5 of them,
Oh, yeah.
she actually in her initial attack only kills 2 of them because the one guy that was doing all the talking gets behind the truck.
Yeah.
The 2 guys that were in the cab get shot and wounded, but I was glad because I thought if she shot through that truck from her hand like that, it's completely unreal. It takes me completely out of the show.
Mm. Yeah. Well, it just seems like she killed off the 2 guys, and the guy hid behind the truck while the other 2 guys were passed out, which I don't.
Well, they
Yeah.
were depending on.
I don't get why they would be passed out if they got shot.
I will
Like,
see. I didn't get
like-
that for the first guy. I got for the first guy. He was hiding and making sure that the bullets were done. Being fired at them. So then that's when once there was enough time where
he steps out and
he steps out.
I think it's when he started hearing the clicking from Carol's gun. Where
Right.
He's like, "Oh, she's out of bullets." He got up and started, just taking his handgun and shooting
Yes.
in her direction.
The other guy, he got shot in the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So the shock of it could have knocked him out.
I guess maybe.
I mean, it's a wound. It maybe had taken a little bit of time to recover from it.
Mm.
You don't because it doesn't show him, so you don't really know if he's. You just see him slouched over. You don't see if he's knocked out or not.
Right. He might have been doing the same thing, to be honest.
Right.
He could have been just,
And when they
ducking
focused
down.
on him, he didn't look like he was much of a killer at that time.
hmm
He looked more like I'm with these guys. I do what they need me to do, but I'm not going to do it unless I'm
need
not
to.
cold blooded
Yeah.
yet. Okay, so we have Carol waylaced to these guys.
Yeah.
Waylaced to these guys is what came out.
Waylaced.
Yes, fuck.
Or I think he means lay waste.
Lay waste. There we go.
But yeah, so basically she kills 4 out of 5 of the guys. The last guy that we're talking about with the shoulder injury doesn't start moving until way later.
Right, and
Mm.
she's gone.
She's gone.
He hides, I guess, because I guess he hears the car with Rick and Morgan coming up.
Yeah. So Rick and Morgan, while they're driving up there, Morgan basically confesses to Rick that he knew where Carol went, what direction, because he saw her leave.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas back in Alexandria, he said, "Oh, I don't know where she went, and I'm just gonna go and get her." It goes back to the whole thing of Morgan wanting to,
Save people.
yeah, basically, he doesn't want
Give
to
them
kill
a
anybody.
second chance or bring them back.
Yeah. He doesn't want to kill anybody. And so this whole conversation that he has with Rick in the car, and after investigating the scene of where, the whole gun show went off, yeah, or gunfire or fight went off and all that
One
stuff.
of those things.
They start making their way in a direction that, Morgan sees some tracks, and so they start following to get to see if that's going in Carol's direction. During that whole time, it's more the back and forth between Rick and Morgan that we've seen over this season quite a bit. Whereas, Morgan's like, I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to do this, that. People can be saved. And Rick is telling him, well, the world's changed and I've changed and we need to be this and that. And so it's just a lot of the back and forth, again, of Rick versus Morgan about,
That's a new
should we
movie.
kill? Yeah. Should we kill or shouldn't we kill? And, I get it, and it's a good dynamic. It's just playing out for too long.
It's getting old.
Yeah, it's playing out for too long. Yeah, one of them are gonna have to break soon, if that's the case.
Well, I mean, with what we know of Negan and what's coming, you can see that break is going to happen.
Yeah, there's not. This kind of mentality that Morgan has isn't gonna last much longer.
But then again, where Morgan ends up in the end of this episode, he may not even be around for it.
Yeah. Well, I think around this time in the comic book, if I'm not mistaken, Morgan's already dead.
Is he? Because I thought he was still with Michonne at that time.
No.
So as Rick and and Morgan go off into the field to try to track down, and follow a blood trail and try to track down where Carol might be. We cut back to Daryl, actually, I should say we cut back to Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne on the railroad tracks where we saw Denise die the week before.
Yeah.
They see Daryl's bike,
They
and
find Daryl's bike hidden.
yeah, and they track him into the woods.
Yeah. It's basically they catch up with him. Daryl says, "No, I have to do this. I have to kill Dwight because I let him go, and he came back and he killed Denise. And if I killed him beforehand, this wouldn't happen." He kind of feels a little more remorse for not killing this Dwight and those two female companions he was with beforehand in the early half of this season.
Yes.
So he feels like he's obligated now to kill him. So he goes on his own. And
Should Daryl have killed him?
Daryl should kill him just because you know who Dwight.
But we didn't
is
know
at
it
this
was
point.
Dwight at that time. We made the assumption after he took the crossbow, but
Oh, you mean in the earlier part?
Yes.
I don't think so. Only because at this point I was thinking to myself, "Oh, that's not Dwight." I was just thinking it was just some people that were lost.
and
until-
one of Daryl's missions was to go out and find new
recruit
people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
And they gave no signs of it at
exactly.
first.
That was the thing. He had no feeling of the threat towards the end. Once he had that conversation towards the end, and he heard keywords that were going into a conversation.
Well, it's
He was
almost
having-
he started asking the 3 questions.
Right. And so, and you see at the end of that episode, he cuts himself off midsection or sentence and says shit, and turns around and tries to shoot him.
But yeah, he realizes,
Yeah.
as he's asking those 3 questions. So here we are now with burn scar that we know of from the comic book, Dwight,
Mm-hmm.
and he kills Denise. Now Daryl's trying to track him down. Michonne and Glenn and Rosita catch up with him to try to convince him to come back, that it's not worth it. They need to defend Alexandria and stay close to them.
Well, they said we need a plan. You
Right.
can't just go straight up and try to go vigilante mode and kill him. We need to go back to Alexandria and we'll plan it out.
I'm Daryl.
Yeah. So he's like, we need to plan it out before we go out and do this. And Daryl's like, no, I got to do this now.
Yes.
So he leaves. Rosita follows because I think Rosita's just still in that place where she just feels alone.
Well, I mean, because there was that little thing of they show Sasha and Abraham, having their little bit of lovers exchange as they're switching
Yeah.
posts, and Rosita standing right there. So Rosita obviously is like, you know what, I don't want to be fucking around them right now, so
Yeah.
I'm going to be out here and I'll be with Daryl because she's obviously been sleeping around already after Abraham. She was with Denise's son,
No, Deanna's son.
Deanna's son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Denise.
Denise didn't have a son.
She's a lesbian.
Yeah.
But then lesbians can have sons. But yes.
We get
Within the
point, yeah.
dynamic, I don't want to get into political, but within the dynamic of the show, Deanna's son
Yes.
was who? Yes. Okay.
Who's kind of courting her.
But
right
she
now.
was doing that just because she was
You see
finding
it.
solace.
Yeah, she feels alone.
Yes.
And that's what it is. And it's exactly how it was in the comic book too. Rosita feels alone, and Eugene steps up to that point of comforting her,
Right.
and so that's why she's eventually starts being more with Eugene and starting a relationship with Eugene in the comic books.
So Michonne and Glenn turn back to go back towards the van and go back to Alexandria, obviously.
Well, I don't think they went back towards the van. They went into the woods, but they're just like kind of talking. They're like, "Oh, they're going, so we're gonna wait for them." But
Right.
in the meantime, we're gonna talk about shit.
We're just going to
Basically.
shoot the shit.
Yeah, exactly. So in that time, yes, they start hearing whistles,
and every time there was a whistle, a new man popped out.
and basically they got surrounded by the Saviors, that same group or not the same group, but more of that group from the first run on the railroad tracks.
Right, from Dwight's group.
because the last one is Dwight.
Yes.
So, which he was holding that gun really awkward.
I
don't understand.
It's always a problem with actors and, with weapons in TV and film. They've never hold it right. And that bugs me so much because being an actor, that's one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're holding your weapon the right way because one, that's where you're supposed to be holding it, and two, the audience will look at the screen and go, that's not right, and it completely takes them out of the scene.
I want to know if it maybe like he grabbed it by mistake and his middle finger went on top of the trigger and he was just doing the scene because, you know, it was part of the scene and that was the best take. And so they're like, screw it, we're just going to use it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that does happen. That
You
does
know?
happen a lot of times where you'll do that take like 4 or 5 times, maybe even more sometimes. And then the editor's sitting there going, shit, that other take was really good, but you know what? We have an airplane. We can't use it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, with digital stuff nowadays, you can switch things around, but there's still, you know what? There may have been a bug in the scene or, you know, something may have happened where that was the best take.
Right.
Sometimes it gets past the director and the editor, you know, and slips into it.
Yeah.
Or there may have been from a different angle that he did that same thing, and so we got that shot from the other
Have to do it
angle,
for
and we have to keep it in continuity.
Yeah. So, whatever the reason was behind it, it's fine. It's just like
It takes you out of the scene.
it was
though.
just really awkward. I was like, who holds the gun with their middle finger on the trigger?
Well, it's like when in
It was like trying to palm it like you palm a basketball, but he was palming the gun.
yeah, in the original Star Wars movie when Han Solo's when the stormtroopers are attacking the Millennium Falcon at Mos Eisley's, he's got this wimp wristed little hold that he's doing, and the gun's like at an angle. And it's like there's no way he's shooting anybody with
Right.
that angle. And it happened, like I said, it happens in film and television all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you see people with machine guns and they're holding it, and you can tell. You know, I've fired a machine gun before, so I know the weight of it, the tension that you get, or the kick on it. Yeah, the recoil. So you've got to hold it a certain way,
Yeah.
or it's going to knock your ass on the ground.
Yeah.
And it happens where you give an actor something that's never had a gun in their hand, and look at me, and it's like all over the place. So, anyways, back to what you were saying. Yes, Dwight was holding the gun very awkwardly.
Yes. So. Well, it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is, and I still felt the same intensity.
You
in
can
the
get
scene.
past it.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, why is he holding it like that one? But it's no big deal. So we move on. As far as that goes, they basically take Michonne and Glenn hostage, and they're setting up a camp essentially.
I guess,
For
yeah,
the
camping
night.
for the night at least.
Yeah, something like that, because they're getting firewood and whatnot, and Glenn and Michonne are tied up, sitting on a log. And then you notice that Daryl comes around
Yeah.
a corner. And so, sure enough, he's, like, oh, don't worry, I got this, guys. I'm going to help you guys out.
But before you get to the next point, because that's actually at the end of the episode, during all of this exchange and everything, we cut back to Alexandria, and we have Maggie, and I always forget her name. Enid. I always want to call her Elsa. Enid. Enid had helped her out like earlier on, just like a very, very quick scene where she's getting something out of the pantry, and
Maggie's
coming
together.
in for lunch or something.
Well, Maggie's planning
Yes.
stuff and making sure that things are done in Alexandria, basically taking the role of Deanna.
Right.
And
There was another little short scene where she was planting guns throughout the property.
Yeah, she's hiding guns so that, they know where guns are if they need to.
Right.
And basically, Enid just tells her, hey,
She
I'm
wants
going
to
to
help out.
I'm going to take your post. You go and rest because you just seem really tired. So just
It's
go
a
rest."
very, very stereotypical pregnancy thing. She gives her pickles.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. Because
Go
she
put your
comes-
feet up and have some pickles.
Yeah, she gets in the pantry because she's hungry. She wants to eat something, and Enid gives her a jar of pickles. So yeah, and says, "Hey, go put your feet up and
Yeah.
eat some pickles." So
So then we cut back to a third scene with Maggie, and now it's with Enid, and she's come to the door asking if she could do more for her. And we finally get the answer to this major. It was when it first broke about Maggie cutting her,
Lauren Cohan.
Lauren Cohen cutting her hair. everybody freaked out and said,
She's
she
gonna
dies.
die,
Oh my
she's gonna
God,
die."
she's going to die. She cut her hair. She's changed her look. She's going to die.
Well, yeah, Enid stabs her in the head with a pair of scissors after she's done cutting her hair, right?
So, but in the scene, so the scene is Eden cutting her hair,
Yeah.
which goes back to.
Which I'm totally kidding about Enid
Right.
stabbing her in the head.
But it
People are
does
like,
go
"What?
back to
What happened?"
two episodes earlier when Maggie and Carol are captured.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens is they grab Maggie by her hair
Yeah.
and yank her around. So now she's like, no, I'm cutting it off because nothing's ever going to hold me back again.
Yeah.
And
And then she starts to have some intense stomach pain,
some stomach pains.
which, as we mentioned before in this podcast,
This comic was
I'm
now who's having a
starting to
stroke?
talk like you, Rich.
I know.
I'm saying in this podcast.
I'm drinking beer. You have water. I
I
don't
have
know
no
why you're
excuse. I
drinking.
don't know.
You're stuttering.
But like we said earlier in the podcast, that the reason why they go to Hilltop and they run into Negan's group is because of the fact that Maggie needs to go to the doctor.
Yes.
Or
But from the comic book, she's just moving there.
she's just moving there because they feel like having a doctor would help them with the pregnancy and the
Well, there's
birth.
also the twins that are still alive in the comic book.
I don't think the twins are alive.
Well, I thought they were.
No, they die way early. The twins.
Did they?
Yes. Sophia's with them. Sophia.
Oh, that's
is
right.
in the
That's
comic
Sophia.
book.
That's Sophia.
Yeah. Which oddly enough, Sophia is still alive in the comic book.
Well, that's
to
where
this day.
Enid's character.
Yeah, Enid is taking over the
Yeah.
Sophia role, so that's why we feel like Enid is going to be Maggie's daughter, quote unquote.
quote unquote. Yeah. That's why. That's why you had Glenn save her and bring her back.
Yeah,
And that their connection that they had.
yeah,
And now you have that with Maggie and her. But yes, we had to set up a plot device to now
get the group out.
need to get the group to go to Hilltop,
Right.
so it will tie into the story structure of the comic book.
Yes.
Because and we say this all the time. Even though it may be a different character or usually a different character that happened, that a situation happens to that was something that happened in the comic book. Mm-hmm. We now have Sasha basically taking over the role of Andrea and that split with Michonne because Andrea was with Rick and in the comic book.
Oh yeah, in towards this part of the comic book, Andrea is the love interest of Rick.
But she's also the sharpshooter that's always in the
yeah.
tower and everything, which is what Sasha has become.
Yeah, she's the best shooter they have essentially, and that's basically what Sasha has become.
So to keep in the tone of the comic book, we need a plot to get the group with Maggie out to Hilltop.
Right.
So
So with
we-
Maggie and Glenn.
Right.
But that's the thing is, Glenn and Maggie are separated, but they're with that group, so I think that they're all going to come back.
There's going to be a way that they. It's a 90-minute episode finale next week. So at some point, all of those two groups are going to meet up. Whether Rick and them, save Maggie, or excuse me, save Glenn, Michonne, and Daryl, or not. Somehow they're all going to meet back up.
Either that or that's one group, and then they say, okay, we got them, and they send someone back to tell Negan, and Negan's like, okay, well, let's meet the rest of them.
Yes.
See,
that's the other thing is that group and Negan could bring them to Rick and them.
that's what I'm saying. Is
So then that's where they
Yeah.
all meet up.
they basically set up a roadblock, like in the beginning of this half of the season,
Right.
Like those guys, and stop Rick and the group, and basically
They already have
Dwight
Daryl
and their group meet up with them
yes,
all together.
which coincides with next. What could happen. So
Well, the end of this episode,
the end of this episode,
huge cliffhanger.
huge cliffhanger. So
Huge.
where we left off with Daryl and Glenn and
Michonne,
and Rosita was Glenn and Michonne are tied up in this makeshift camp, and Rosita and Daryl come up upon them, and all of a sudden you see Daryl. First you see Glenn and Michonne, then you cut to Daryl, then you cut back to Glenn and Michonne.
Well, Daryl's hiding behind a tree.
Right, he
Essentially
exposes himself.
seeing like face to face with Glenn and Michonne, and Glenn
Glenn's-
is like, "No, go,
Yeah.
go away,
Get
because
out of
we-
here!
yeah.
Get out of here! It's a trap."
Exactly. And so Daryl is like, "No, I got this. I'm going to help you out."
And we cut to a
Glenn-
wider angle.
Well, Glenn notices that Dwight is now behind Daryl with a
Yes.
gun pointed right at him.
Which we cut to the wide angle to understand
Yes.
what Glenn is trying to muffily say.
Yes. Well, he
And-
keeps saying Daryl, Daryl
Yes.
to try to get his attention to turn around.
Yes.
But then, Daryl doesn't see it.
Daryl's more focused on trying to get in there.
Yes. And
We
So-
reveal Dwight standing behind Daryl with
Mhm.
a
with a pistol,
pistol,
right at
9
him.
millimeter something, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And straight up, I forget what he says.
he says, "Hi, Daryl."
Oh, okay. So he says, "Hi, Daryl," and Daryl turns around,
As
and
Daryl's turning,
there's a gunshot,
and
and
blood splatters all over the camera lens.
right over where Daryl. Well, you see, Daryl is in the right bottom corner of the screen.
Yes.
Dwight is on the left side of the screen, and they shoot. And when the gunshot goes off, the blood spatters all over the bottom right corner of the screen.
And
So you-
immediately fades to black.
yes, and you don't know where
It doesn't
he got,
even really fade, it just cuts straight to black.
Yeah, and you don't see what happened to Daryl. You don't, you don't get an idea of what angle he was shooting him at.
And then in the black
The-
screen,
The only thing you hear when the black screen is, "Oh, you'll be fine.
you'll be all right.
You'll be all right."
And
Which,
then-
which it's still debatable on who's saying that.
Yeah.
Is it Daryl that's saying it?
Well,
or is
that's
it,
what. Yeah. When it
Dwight?
cut to the Talking Dead and Hardwick, he said it's Dwight that says it, but it kind of sounded like Daryl.
It sounded a little like Daryl. But,
Yeah.
Um,
And Daryl always carries a pistol with him too.
yeah, but I mean, he had his hands with the crossbow. So I mean,
Yeah, but
I
as
find it
he's
very
turning,
difficult.
he could have.
I find it very difficult for him to drop the
Sure.
crossbow, pick up a pistol, and shoot it before Dwight can get a shot off.
Well, sure. I mean, it does happen, but I mean, who knows?
I mean, I'm gonna play it as that's
It-
Dwight saying
I
it.
have a feeling Dwight shoots him
Yes, but I think he shoots him like
in the shoulder,
in the
or
shoulder
something.
or like in the torso or something.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of blood on the screen, so
Yeah.
I think it's something that it's like vital, like a vital organ or something.
Well, I don't think they'll kill. I don't think that they'll kill Daryl like that.
Hmm.
And
Well-
I really see Daryl needs to get revenge on Dwight before he dies.
Hmm.
But next week we know we get the introduction of Negan, which we saw in the preview. We get him from behind, and then we see Lucille, and we hear, "I'm Negan."
My goodness. Just
Did you get chills? Did you
I
get
did.
goosebumps?
when they showed that preview?
Did you get a hard on? You
No,
did,
I
didn't
didn't.
you? Didn't. Be honest. Be honest. We don't
No, I'm not
care.
like Negan where I get a hard
your
on from
fans,
Lucille.
your fans don't care. If you got a hard on from Negan, hey, they're gonna think that you really are a Walking Dead fan.
No, I'm not like Negan where I get a hard on from rubbing myself with Lucille.
That'll be next season.
Oh, I'm waiting to see how Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays this because the way that Negan is in the comic book is
It's so
he's
brutal.
the most unlikable, likable character, and so that's the thing.
He is the essence of pure evil.
Exactly.
There's nothing redeemable about him, but because
He's
he's
a-
such a badass, you can't help but like him.
Yeah,
It's like people that like Freddy Krueger. There's nothing redeemable about Freddy
Yeah.
Krueger at all. He's a child molester and a murderer, and people still think he's one of the coolest villain, horror.
well, I think that's what
characters.
it is that when you have a character that's so good as far as like when you have a story together.
Well, Darth
and
Vader,
reading it, yeah. When you read this book and you read Negan and everything, and he's to the point where you hate this guy so much, and you're like, I like him because I hate him,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I think is the whole fascination with Negan is. My personal opinion is the fact that I hate
So you
this
do
guy.
get a hard on over Negan.
No, I don't get a hard on over Negan, but I say that the fact that I hate him so much. It was the same with the governor. I hate this guy so much that I love the way that his character is written.
I got for the people that haven't read the book, that have only followed the TV show. The governor is George W. Bush to Negan being Trump. No, all honesty,
No,
it's
the governor was bad, Negan is 100 million times worse.
Yeah.
And that's
The-
I think, what was it, a couple years ago when they had this article out where they said that they named the like top 200
villains.
villains in comic books of all time, and the Governor broke, I think, the top 100. And yeah, so
Negan
I
broke
think,
the top 10.
and I haven't checked to see if they wrote an updated article since then, but I would honestly say that Negan would be a lot lower on that list.
Higher.
Well, lower because it counted down.
Closer to 1.
Closer to 1. There you go. So, yeah, and so and the imagery that they're using in the little teaser for next week, you don't see his face. I know it's him because he's wearing the jacket.
It is
He's
definitely
wearing
his
the red
voice.
shirt. Yeah.
Because I was wondering if they were just going to use somebody else. Because they didn't
Hmm.
announce the casting until well after they had shot the
But
season.
that's the thing, is they can easily just
Oh, yeah.
say, "Hey, we need to shoot one more episode."
Or they could have
Or we need to
shot
shoot
it
this
already and then made the casting and then waited.
Or even, yeah, they shot the season, but they didn't shoot that one last episode because they needed to cast Negan for it.
I thought the only thing you wouldn't see his face. Like there'd be a shadow or
You don't
something
see his
over
face.
No, I mean,
So?
not even from you would see from behind, or you'll see just
I'm
the
really
shadow of his
surprised-
face, and then you'll see Lucille do the
I'm
action.
really surprised that they showed Lucille in the teaser.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I would have thought that they would save everything about Negan for
Were
the
you
episode.
more excited to hear I'm Negan or see Lucille?
A little bit of both, actually.
Does it kind of ruin the moment now when you see it?
No, because I know that scene is just going to be really powerful, and I'm just
Because
excited to see it.
we talk about on the Nerdables podcast, we talk about it all the time with movies and how trailers spoil the coolest moments. Like even like we were talking about with Batman versus Superman
Mhm.
this weekend, the Trinity shot of Batman, Superman, and
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. That Trinity shot, it wasn't as powerful because of the whole.
Because they ruined it in the
They
trailer.
ruined it in the trailer. Yeah, sorry, I'm typing on my daughter's
That's fine.
iPad. That's
But-
that's the word I'm looking
But that's
for.
the thing that I think AMC does well with showing the teasers. Is they show you enough to get you excited, but they don't show you everything. And I think the executive producers on the show have made it a very simple fact that they don't want to show you things in previews and trailers, even though people want it.
Mm-hmm.
They say no, we want to keep it for people to watch it live, like watch it as it happens. And so like every time that they put teasers or whatever, they say, well, we can only show you this one scene because nothing happens.
Right.
And
nothing really happened in that scene. I mean, in what they teased. There was a question I was going to ask you just now, and it just escaped me. 90 minutes. We've seen 90-minute episodes a couple times this year.
Well, it seems like it's the going trend for the last 2 seasons.
Yes, to
Is that
either
the
begin the
season finale?
season and end the season with a 90-minute.
Right.
The first one, I think it was the season opener. The first 30 minutes was a waste. There was nothing. Or it was one of them where
I think it was last season.
Was it?
It was like the first 30 minutes of the episode didn't need to be there.
yeah.
It was all set up, and it's just like it could have either been done in like 10 minutes rather than half an hour.
Yes.
But
Seeing where we left off with this episode,
mhm.
do you think that it's going to fill a full 90 minutes and be a good 90 minutes?
if they answer like what happens with Daryl and how the group is getting ready and what's happening to Maggie, if they're wrapping up the season,
Uh-huh.
then yes. But if it's
Because
just
you
a
just
matter,
looked over where we are with the comic book,
Mhm.
and you can see there's still a lot to get to before you get to the reveal of Negan.
in a sense, I mean, because I think the beginning part of this trade is where Abraham gets shot, and so it's not.
Spoiler.
We spoiled it last week. We said it.
But we didn't have him die. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's what it is because, this trade basically starts out with, Abraham getting shot, and then moving forward to the whole railroad scene with Dwight and, Eugene biting his junk. And
He got a hold of that cock.
really the only thing that's more than, what's been shown on the TV show than where we are right now is, I think, where was it? I just passed it.
Don't know.
It's just Dwight finding the group
Mm-hmm.
and bringing them back to Alexandria,
Right.
and then basically giving those members of the group back. And once Rick tells them off and basically says, "No, you can't come in," blah blah blah.
See, and that could happen.
It could.
Because he has members of the group right now.
Mm-hmm. And it could still happen.
I mean, it could end up that they need to go to Hilltop because of Daryl being mortally wounded.
Yeah.
You could have him and Maggie both needing a doctor, so that means that they have to rush out there.
Yeah. No, I can see that happening. I'm just looking over this part with Negan now, and it's like just that teaser is almost identical to the way you're introduced to Negan.
Yeah.
Like you see the bat coming straight towards the lens and all. It's oh my goodness, I'm so excited for next week.
So, obviously, I mean, we'll wrap up next week where we speculate where next season will take us.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling this season it's going to end on a very, very dark note.
Oh yeah, no, I think Stephen Yeun has already said this scene with Negan is a very powerful and very upsetting scene.
It's going to make the end of the first season where the CDC blows up, and you don't know if everybody's dead or not, because of the way it blows up. That's going to look like nothing when they're trapped in Terminus in the train car. That's going to look like child's play compared to what happens. It's like every other season they end it with a very, very dark note.
Well, usually because they had a trend where the last episode of the season would be a main character dying.
Right.
And
It's getting to be like Game of Thrones. Like, how with Game of Thrones, like the second or third to the last episode, it's usually like 9 or 10 of the episodes because there's usually like 13.
There's 10 usually.
I thought it was 13.
It's always 10 on Game of Thrones.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
The 8th or 9th scene or episodes are usually the darkest, the bloodiest. You had the Red Wedding. You had that was the season 1. That's when Ned gets beheaded. All of these things within those last couple of episodes.
Well, yeah, and
Walking Dead is getting to
well, that's what they're doing is they're using an entire season to do an arc.
Yes.
And the season finale is supposed to be the ending of that arc.
Right.
Whereas the last couple seasons, though, their season enders
have been
like, it's gonna happen, and then the next season, the first episode is like the ending of that arc.
Right.
So I really hope that this is something that's gonna basically answer all the questions and end and begin the new story.
Do you think that it could end right before the? No, because they've already said that the ending of it is going to be brutal and it's going to change things for one of the main characters.
You're definitely going to see what Negan does in the comic book. It's just a matter of who it's going to happen to. You don't know. I think that's the only thing that's up in the air.
Right now, as somebody that's read the comic book and following the show, that is what's got me the most anxious. Is
who can it be?
Yeah, because if it's who it's supposed to be, I'm fine with it. But if it's somebody else, I'm like, especially if it's like Daryl or somebody, I was like, no, oh God, that'll like. It'll put, and that's why I think that they could change it from who it's supposed to be, is because for both fans of the show and the comic book,
Well, a lot of people have.
it changes it.
Yeah.
And everybody's sitting on edge together.
Well, Stephen Young's also said that a lot of people keep asking him, and he's like, "I'm not going to tell you,
Yeah.
but I will tell you that we do things differently on the show than
Yeah.
we do in the comic book." And I want to say that's him trying to divert the question to make people think about it, whereas he knows, something is going to go a certain way. So he could just really honestly be saying, "Hey, it's not me, it's somebody else because we do stuff differently."
Yes.
But he could also be using that as the ploy of saying, "Yeah, it is me, but I want to give you this so you can speculate that, hey, it could be somebody else too."
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up for this episode.
Sure.
So, for Ethan and myself, we want to remind you to please leave us a comment, especially about the Walking Dead cast. Let us know what you think. You can
Let us know who you think it could be. If
Yeah.
there's, for those of you that are fans of the comic book and fans of the TV show, and listening to our podcast, you kind of get an idea of what's happening next. We know that a major character is going to die in a brutal way.
Who do you think it's
Who
gonna
do you think
be?
it could be if they were going to change it from the comic book? Who do you think will?
For the comic book fans, who do you think should go that would be as powerful it was in the comic book for the followers of the show? Who do you think would make the most impact right now to die?
All right.
And then make sure you follow us on Facebook.com/Nerdables. We're also on Twitter @NerdablesShow. And check out Nerdables.com. So for Ethan and myself, we'll wrap things up next week.
We'll see you next week.